In the quiet rural town of Gin, Queensland, Australia, a seemingly ordinary morning in May 2025 would mark the beginning of one of the most chilling missing person cases to capture international attention. 17-year-old Pheobe Bishop was supposed to catch a flight from Bundaberg Airport to Western Australia to visit her boyfriend. Instead, she vanished without a trace, sparking a 3-week search that would end in tragedy and shocking revelations about those closest to her. What started as a routine trip to the airport would unravel into a complex web of deception, involving the very people Pheobe trusted most. This is the story of a young woman whose life was cut tragically short, and the investigation that revealed the dark truth behind her disappearance. Pheobe Bishop was a typical 17-year-old navigating the complexities of young adulthood. Like many teenagers, she was in the process of finding herself, a journey she had documented on social media platforms including TikTok. In her final post before disappearing, Pheobe spoke candidly about her family relationships and her personal journey of self-discovery, giving no indication of the danger that awaited her. She had been living in a share house situation in Gin, a small town in Queensland's Wide Bay region, approximately an hour's drive from Bundaberg Airport. Her living arrangement was with 2 adults who would later become central figures in her tragic story: James Wood, age 34, and Tamika Bromley, aged 33. At the time, these housemates appeared to be supportive figures in Phoebe's life, offering her accommodation and seemingly caring for her welfare. Pheobe had been planning a trip to Western Australia to visit her boyfriend, a journey that represented hope and happiness in what would tragically become her final days. Her excitement about the trip was evident to those around her, making her subsequent disappearance all the more shocking and inexplicable. Thursday, May 15, 2025, began like any other day, but it would end with Pheobe Bishop vanishing without a trace. The morning started with what appeared to be routine preparation for her flight to Western Australia. At approximately 8:30 a.m. local time, Pheobe was dropped off at Bundaberg Airport, ready to catch her scheduled flight to see her boyfriend. However, something went terribly wrong. Despite arriving at the airport and being seen in the vicinity of Airport Drive, Pheobe never boarded her flight. The aircraft departed without her, and she was never seen alive again. The last confirmed sighting of Pheobe was near the airport that morning, creating a timeline that would become crucial to the investigation that followed. What makes this disappearance particularly puzzling is the complete absence of any explanation for why Pheobe failed to board her flight. She had been looking forward to the trip, had made all the necessary arrangements, and appeared to be in good spirits. There were no reported arguments, no signs of distress, and no indication that she had changed her mind about traveling. One moment she was there, and the next she had simply vanished. The initial hours after Phoebe's disappearance were filled with confusion and growing concern. When she failed to arrive in Western Australia as expected, her boyfriend and family became alarmed. Attempts to contact her were unsuccessful, and it quickly became apparent that something was seriously wrong. When Pheobe Bishop failed to arrive at her destination and couldn't be contacted, Queensland police were notified, and a missing person investigation was launched. Initially, authorities approached the case as they would any missing person report, hoping for a quick resolution and Phoebe's safe return. The investigation immediately focused on the last known location where Pheobe had been seen, the area around Bundaberg Airport, specifically Airport Drive and nearby Samuels Road. Police appealed to the public for any information, dashcam footage, or CCTV that might show Phoebe's movements on the morning of May 15th. They were particularly interested in any sightings of Pheobe or the gray Hyundai 935 that had been used to transport her to the airport. As days passed without any sign of Pheobe, the investigation began to take on a more serious tone. The initial optimism that she might have simply missed her flight or decided to extend her stay somewhere began to fade as her continued absence became more concerning. Police expanded their search area and began conducting more intensive interviews with anyone who had been in contact with Pheobe in the days leading up to her disappearance. The involvement of homicide detectives marked a significant escalation in the investigation. This development, coming approximately 10 days after Phoebe's disappearance, signaled that police suspected foul play rather than a voluntary disappearance. The shift from a missing person case to a potential homicide investigation sent shockwaves through the local community and Phoebe's family, who had been holding on to hope for her safe return. As the investigation deepened, attention naturally turned to the people closest to Pheobe, including her housemates James Wood and Tamika Bromley. The gray Hyundai 935 that had been used to drive Pheobe to the airport became a focal point of the investigation, with police declaring it a potential crime scene, along with the property in Jinjin where Pheobe had been living. The house in Jinjin, described as dilapidated, became the subject of intense police scrutiny. Investigators conducted searches of the property, looking for any evidence that might explain Phoebe's disappearance. The fact that police designated both the vehicle and the house as potential crime scenes suggested they had found evidence linking these locations to Phoebe's fate. James Wood's behavior during the investigation raised significant red flags for investigators. In a crucial development, Wood provided police with details about the day Pheobe vanished, but his account apparently contained inconsistencies or information that concerned investigators. Within hours of giving this statement, Wood was taken into custody, marking the first major breakthrough in the case. The timing of Wood's arrest was particularly significant. It came after what police described as a pause in the physical search for Pheobe, suggesting that investigators had shifted their focus from looking for a missing person to building a criminal case. The rapid transition from Wood providing information to being arrested indicated that his account of events may have revealed more than he intended. As the investigation continued, the search for Pheobe Bishop expanded beyond the immediate area around Bundaberg Airport. Police focused their efforts on the greater Jinjin area, particularly interested in tracking the movements of the gray Hyundai 935 between May 15th and May 18th. This 3-day window became crucial to understanding what had happened to Pheobe after she disappeared from the airport. The search efforts involved multiple agencies and utilized various resources, including ground teams, aerial searches, and specialized units. The rural nature of the Queensland landscape presented significant challenges, with vast areas of bushland and national parks that could potentially conceal evidence or remains. The case garnered significant media attention, both locally and internationally, as the mystery of Phoebe's disappearance captured public interest. During this period, Phoebe's family endured unimaginable anguish, not knowing whether their daughter was alive or dead. Her mother's heartbreaking social media posts reflected the emotional toll the disappearance was taking on the family. The uncertainty was perhaps the cruelest aspect of the ordeal, as hope and despair alternated with each passing day without news. Community support rallied around the search efforts, with volunteers joining official search teams and local businesses offering resources to aid in the investigation. The case had touched the hearts of people far beyond Queensland, with social media campaigns helping to spread awareness and keep Phoebe's story in the public eye. 3 weeks after Pheobe Bishop's disappearance, the investigation took a tragic turn that would provide answers while breaking hearts. On a Friday afternoon in early June, police conducting a search in Goodnight Scrub National Park, located near Jinjin and approximately an hour's drive from Bundaberg Airport, made a grim discovery. Human remains were found in the remote bushland area, marking a devastating development in the case. The location of the discovery was significant for several reasons. Goodnight Scrub National Park represented an area that police had previously searched extensively, but investigators later revealed that their evidence suggested materials had been moved before officers arrived at various locations. This revelation painted a picture of deliberate concealment and potential tampering with evidence, suggesting that whoever was responsible for Phoebe's death had gone to considerable lengths to hide their crime. While the remains found in the national park had not been formally identified at the time of discovery, police were confident enough to contact Phoebe's family about the development. The discovery represented the end of the agonizing uncertainty that had plagued her loved ones for 3 weeks, though it replaced hope with the harsh reality of loss. The location where the remains were discovered provided crucial intelligence about the movements of those responsible for Phoebe's death. The fact that the area had been previously searched suggested a level of premeditation and knowledge of police investigative techniques that pointed to calculated criminal behavior rather than a crime of passion or opportunity. Following the discovery of human remains, the investigation moved swiftly toward formal charges. Queensland police announced that 2 adults had been charged in connection with Pheobe Bishop's death, bringing the 3-week mystery to a legal conclusion while raising new questions about motive and circumstances. James Wood, 34, and Tamika Bromley, 33, Phoebe's housemates who had been living with her in Gin Gin, were formally charged with murder. The charges were comprehensive and telling. Each faced 1 count of murder and 2 counts of interfering with a corpse. The multiple charges related to interfering with the corpse suggested that Phoebe's body had been moved more than once, supporting police theories about evidence tampering and deliberate concealment. The charging of both housemates indicated that police believed this was not the work of a single individual, but rather a collaborative effort to commit murder and then cover up the crime. The nature of the charges painted a picture of a prolonged criminal enterprise that began with Phoebe's murder and continued with repeated attempts to conceal evidence and mislead investigators. The arrests provided some measure of closure for Phoebe's family and the community that had rallied around the search efforts. However, they also raised disturbing questions about the environment in which Phoebe had been living and the people she had trusted with her safety and well-being. According to police allegations, the crime against Pheobe Bishop was not a spontaneous act, but rather a calculated murder, followed by elaborate attempts to conceal the evidence. Investigators alleged that Phoebe was murdered and her body was subsequently moved multiple times, with Goodnight Scrub National Park being among the locations where evidence was placed and later relocated. The allegations suggested a timeline that began on or around May 15th, the day of Phoebe's disappearance, and continued for several days afterward. The multiple movements of evidence indicated that Wood and Bromley were allegedly engaged in ongoing efforts to avoid detection, moving materials whenever they suspected police might be closing in on specific locations. The involvement of the gray Hyundai in the crime became clearer as police revealed their theory of events. The vehicle, which had initially been used to transport Phoebe to the airport, allegedly became an instrument in the commission and concealment of the crime. Police had seized the vehicle early in the investigation, recognizing its potential importance as a crime scene. One of the most disturbing aspects of the allegations was the suggestion that the accused had intimate knowledge of the police investigation and were actively working to stay ahead of law enforcement efforts. The claim that evidence had been moved before police arrived at various locations suggested either inside knowledge of police operations or careful monitoring of investigative activities. The Pheobe Bishop case had a profound impact on the local community in Queensland and captured international attention through social media and news coverage. The rural nature of the area where the crime occurred made it particularly shocking to residents who were not accustomed to such violent crimes in their quiet communities. The case highlighted several troubling social issues, including the vulnerability of young people in share house situations and the potential dangers that can lurk behind seemingly normal living arrangements. Phoebe's story resonated with parents and young adults worldwide, serving as a tragic reminder of the importance of safety awareness and the need for strong support networks. Social media played a significant role in keeping Phoebe's story alive during the 3 weeks she was missing. Hashtags and awareness campaigns helped maintain public attention on the case, potentially assisting police by keeping the public engaged and encouraging people to come forward with information. The power of digital platforms to mobilize communities around missing person cases was clearly demonstrated throughout the search efforts. The international media coverage of the case brought global attention to the small Queensland community, with news outlets from around the world following developments in the investigation. This attention, while helpful in maintaining awareness, also brought additional pressure and scrutiny to the local area and the families involved. With the formal charging of James Wood and Tamika Bromley, the case entered the legal phase that would determine their fate and potentially provide more answers about what happened to Pheobe Bishop. Both accused individuals were scheduled to appear in court to face the serious charges against them, marking the beginning of what promised to be a complex legal process. The nature of the charges meant that both Wood and Bromley faced the possibility of life imprisonment if convicted. Murder charges in Queensland carry severe penalties, reflecting the serious nature of the alleged crimes and the impact on the victim and her family. The additional charges related to interfering with a corpse added further complexity to the legal proceedings and demonstrated the comprehensive nature of the case police had built. The legal process would eventually reveal more details about the evidence police had gathered during their investigation, potentially providing Phoebe's family and the public with a clearer understanding of the circumstances surrounding her death. However, the court proceedings also meant that many details would remain confidential until the appropriate time in the legal process. The case represented a significant legal undertaking for the Queensland justice system, involving multiple charges, complex evidence, and international media attention. The proceedings would need to balance the pursuit of justice with the rights of the accused and the need to protect the integrity of the legal process. Despite the arrests and charges in the Pheobe Bishop case, many questions remain unanswered, creating a sense of unfinished business that continues to haunt those following the story. The motive for the alleged murder remains unclear, with police not revealing what may have driven Phoebe's housemates to allegedly commit such a heinous act against someone they were supposedly caring for. The exact timeline of events on May 15th and the days that followed remains partially obscured. While police have alleged that Pheobe was murdered and her body moved multiple times, the specific sequence of events and the reasoning behind the various movements of evidence have not been fully explained. These details may emerge during the legal proceedings, but for now, they remain part of the mystery. One particularly intriguing aspect of the case involves the allegation that key figures in the investigation had not been interviewed in person by detectives even weeks into the investigation. This revelation raised questions about the thoroughness of the investigative process and whether all potential leads and witnesses had been properly pursued. The relationship dynamics within the share house arrangement also remain largely unexplored in public reports. Understanding the nature of the relationships between Pheobe, Wood, and Bromley could provide crucial context for understanding motive and circumstances, but these personal details have not been revealed in detail by authorities. Throughout the 3-week search and subsequent developments, Pheobe Bishop's family endured unimaginable pain and uncertainty. Her mother's public statements during the search revealed the emotional toll of not knowing whether her daughter was alive or dead, describing the experience as being ripped apart by the uncertainty and grief. The family's ordeal began with hope that Pheobe might be found safe, but gradually transformed into the grim reality of loss as the investigation shifted toward homicide. The discovery of human remains in Goodnight Scrub National Park, while providing some answers, also confirmed their worst fears and marked the beginning of a different kind of grief. One focused on seeking justice rather than holding on to hope for Phoebe's return. The public nature of the case meant that the family's grieving process was conducted under intense media scrutiny and public attention. While this attention helped maintain focus on the search efforts, it also meant that the family had little privacy during their most difficult moments. Social media became both a source of support from the community and a constant reminder of their loss. The family's statements throughout the ordeal reflected not only their personal grief, but also their determination to see justice served for Pheobe. Their strength in the face of such tragedy became an inspiration to many following the case, demonstrating the resilience of the human spirit even in the darkest circumstances. The Pheobe Bishop investigation presented numerous challenges for Queensland police, from the rural and remote nature of the search areas to the complexity of building a murder case without initially having a body or crime scene. The 3-week timeline between disappearance and the discovery of remains created additional complications, as evidence had time to degrade and witnesses' memories could become less reliable. One of the significant challenges faced by investigators was the alleged movement of evidence by the perpetrators. Police claims that materials had been relocated before officers arrived at various locations suggested that the investigation was being actively undermined by those responsible for the crime. This cat-and-mouse dynamic required investigators to think several steps ahead and adapt their strategies accordingly. Despite these challenges, the investigation ultimately succeeded in building a case strong enough to support murder charges against both accused individuals. The comprehensive nature of the charges, including multiple counts related to interfering with a corpse, suggested that police had gathered substantial evidence linking Wood and Bromley to both the murder and the subsequent cover-up attempts. The use of multiple investigation techniques, from traditional detective work to appeals for public assistance and technological resources, demonstrated the multifaceted approach required for complex criminal investigations. The case showcased both the capabilities and limitations of modern law enforcement in dealing with sophisticated criminal behavior. The Pheobe Bishop case raises important questions about the safety of young people in share house arrangements and the need for better support systems for vulnerable individuals. Phoebe's situation, living with older adults in a rural setting, highlighted potential risks that may not be immediately apparent to young people seeking affordable accommodation options. The case also demonstrated the importance of maintaining regular contact with family and friends, particularly when living in arrangements that may not provide natural oversight or protection. While no living situation can guarantee complete safety, the tragedy illustrated how isolation and lack of support networks can potentially increase vulnerability to harm. For law enforcement agencies, the case provided lessons about the importance of treating missing person cases seriously from the outset and the value of community engagement in search efforts. The transition from missing person to homicide investigation showed how quickly circumstances can change and the need for flexibility in investigative approaches. The international attention the case received also highlighted the power of social media and digital platforms in modern investigations. While this attention helped maintain public focus on the search efforts, it also demonstrated the need for careful management of information flow to protect the integrity of investigations and the rights of all parties involved. The legal proceedings in the Pheobe Bishop case are just beginning, leaving many questions unanswered and creating questions that will keep observers waiting for months or potentially years to come. James Wood and Tamika Bromley have been charged with murder and interfering with a corpse, but they have not yet entered pleas or faced trial. The upcoming court proceedings promise to reveal crucial details about the evidence police gathered during their investigation, potentially providing answers to the many questions that remain about motive, timeline, and circumstances. However, the legal process is often slow and complex, meaning that those seeking closure may have to wait considerable time for complete answers. One of the most significant unanswered questions involves the motive for the alleged murder. What could have driven Phoebe's housemates to allegedly commit such a heinous act against someone they were supposed to be caring for? The answer to this question may only emerge during the trial proceedings, as prosecution and defense present their cases. The formal identification of the human remains found in Goodnight Scrub National Park, while expected to confirm Phoebe's identity, has not been officially completed and announced as of the writing of the script. This confirmation, when it comes, will mark another milestone in the case, and potentially provide additional forensic evidence for the prosecution. Perhaps most importantly, the legal proceedings will determine whether justice is ultimately served for Pheobe Bishop. The charges against Wood and Bromley are serious, but they must be proven in court beyond a reasonable doubt. The outcome of their trials will determine whether Phoebe's family and the community receive the justice they seek, or whether new questions and controversies will emerge from the legal process. The story of Pheobe Bishop, a young woman whose life was tragically cut short just as she was beginning to find herself, remains unfinished. While her alleged killers have been caught and charged, the full truth about what happened in those final moments, and why, may still be waiting to be revealed in a courtroom where justice will ultimately be decided.